In the endless, searing expanse of the North African desert, World War II was not just a war of tanks and armies, but a shadow war of spies, saboteurs, and ghosts. While history remembers the grand battles of Alamein and Tobruk, it has largely forgotten the silent, deadly games played in the sand. This is the story of one such game, a forgotten operation by Italy's military intelligence, the Servizio Informazioni Militare, or SIM, an audacious mission that nearly vanished from the pages of history. The year is 1941. The British Eighth Army, confident and well-supplied, pushes relentlessly across Libya. For the Axis forces under General Rommel, every British move seems anticipated, every plan known. But behind the front lines, a small, elite group of Italian operatives is about to tip the scales. They are the men of the SIM special units, trained not for the battlefield, but for the shadows behind it. Their mission, Operation Salam, led by Captain Paolo Casa Dominioni, a brilliant engineer and seasoned officer. The plan was as daring as it was perilous. A hand-picked team would drive deep into the Egyptian desert, hundreds of kilometers behind enemy lines, to establish a clandestine observation and transmission post. Their objective was to monitor British movements along the vital coastal road and the railway supplying the front, and to report back to Axis command in real time. This wasn't a raid, it was an infiltration, a ghost cell in the heart of the enemy's domain. Their journey began not with a roar, but with the quiet hum of specially modified vehicles, their tires churning through the unforgiving sand. The team consisted of experts, radio operators, desert navigators, and mechanics. They traveled by night, using the stars to guide them, and hid by day, camouflaging their trucks under nets and sand, praying that the keen eyes of British long-range desert group patrols or the Royal Air Force would pass them by. The desert itself was their most formidable enemy. Temperatures soared, water was more precious than gold, and the constant threat of mechanical failure or getting lost in the featureless landscape was a heavy weight on their minds. Every sunrise brought the risk of discovery, every sunset the challenge of another grueling night's drive through treacherous terrain. After weeks of this torturous journey, they reached their target, a remote, rocky outcrop deep inside Egypt. Here, they established their hidden base. The centerpiece of the operation was a powerful, short-wave radio, codenamed Unda, or Wave. From this desolate spot, the operators began their work. Disguised as Bedouins or local traders, small teams would venture closer to the British supply lines, counting convoys, identifying units, and noting the flow of men and material towards the front. This intelligence was priceless. Back at their hidden base, the radio operator would meticulously encode the observations into a complex cipher. Then, under the cover of darkness, he would begin transmitting. Short, precise bursts of Morse code fired off into the ether, carrying vital secrets across the desert to Axis listening posts. Convoy of 50 tanks heading east, rail traffic increasing. New airfield construction near Fuca. Each message was a lifeline for Rommel's outnumbered Africa Corps. The British were not fools. Their own intelligence, aware of leaks, hunted for the source. Radio direction-finding teams swept the desert, their receivers scanning the airwaves for the phantom transmissions. It became a deadly cat-and-mouse game. The Italian operators had to be disciplined, transmitting only for brief, unpredictable windows, and constantly changing frequencies, One mistake, one transmission too long, and British patrols would descend upon them. On several occasions they came terrifyingly close to being caught. A lone British reconnaissance plane once flew directly over their camouflaged camp, its shadow a fleeting harbinger of doom. The men held their breath, motionless, until the drone of its engine faded into the distance. Another time, a British patrol passed within a few kilometers of their hideout. They could only watch, their hands on their weapons, as the dust trail of the enemy vehicles disappeared over the horizon. The intelligence gathered by Operation Salom had a direct impact on the war. It allowed Rommel to anticipate British offensives, to stage ambushes, and to manage his scarce resources with greater effect. Historians now believe these transmissions were crucial in delaying the British advance and prolonging the Desert Campaign, buying the Axis precious months. It was a strategic victory achieved not with divisions of soldiers, but with a handful of determined men and a radio set. But like all such clandestine operations, its success was fleeting. As the tide of the war turned against the Axis in late 1942, the SIM's network began to unravel. Supplies dwindled, the risk of capture grew exponentially, and eventually the team was forced to destroy their equipment and attempt a desperate escape back across the desert. Not all of them made it. Some were captured, their stories lost in the anonymity of prisoner-of-war camps. For decades, the full story of Operation Salom and other SIM missions remained buried in classified archives, dismissed or overshadowed by the larger narrative of the war. It was a footnote in a global conflict, a secret kept by the sands of time. Only through the painstaking work of a few dedicated historians have the details of these incredible feats of espionage and survival come to light, revealing a hidden chapter of the North African campaign. These men were not conquerors. They were shadows. They fought a war of whispers and wavelengths where survival depended on intellect and nerve. Their actions, though nearly forgotten, underscore a timeless truth of warfare, that sometimes the most decisive blows are struck far from the front lines by unseen hands in the dark. If this hidden story moved you, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More forgotten heroes are waiting to be remembered.